Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Really quickly, in the comment section, if you could just type and let me know if you can see my screen and if you can hear my voice. All right, awesome. I see some people that I know very well on here and some names that I haven't seen before. So we're going to really talk about what it takes to just generate massive amounts of leads that are going to continue for you in your real estate business. And specifically, when we talk about leads, we're talking about seller leads. And we're going to talk a little bit about the challenges of getting seller leads in today's market. So before we get started, go ahead and turn off your cell phone, set them aside for a minute, shut down your email, and turn off your Facebook, your Twitter, so we've got your full attention here. And because we're going to go quickly, I'm going to go through a lot of points, and I'm not going to send this out afterwards, so take some notes. You may see a replay of this that'll come back up, but I am not going to send out a copy of this afterwards because there's some great information on here. You all took the time to be on the webinar today, and I want to reward your time and your guys' attention to doing this. So next, also want to just mention with questions. I know I'm going to talk about some things. I might use some terms that you may have never heard before. I'm sure on here there's some of you are very familiar with real estate, and some of you might be newer to real estate. And so some of the terms I might use might not be something that you're familiar with. So please go ahead and type any comments that you have into the questions box there on your screen. And what we'll do is when I get my chance, I will go back in the end, and we'll spend about 15 or 20 minutes at the end going through and answering any questions that you have, okay? And the last thing I want to tell you is I'm not going to sell you anything on this program today. I'm not going to sell you anything on this webinar. My goal here is to just kind of give you an idea of what's available to you out there. And then at the end, I'm going to discuss with you if you're interested in joining a group of us that are going to spend some time really getting to know this at a deep level. And I'm going to invite you to check that out further. But there's no obligation to buy anything. There's no sales pitch in this webinar whatsoever. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so first off is, what is going on in the market? Why is lead generation so difficult today? And specifically lead generation when it comes to getting listings, right? It's such a challenge. And many of us in the United States right now are challenged with what we like to call a seller's market, right? And to define a seller's market is simply more buyers than there are sellers. And National Association of Realtors defines that as less than 90 days inventory is considered a seller's market. And so basically a seller's market is just simply this: there's just a lot more buyers than sellers. And so I bet most of you in your markets, if you're in any of the major cities in America, you're suffering from low inventory as leftover from the recent recession that we had. Another challenge that's occurring in the market right now is functional obsolescence, meaning that the homes that are available, or some of the homes that are available, simply don't meet the needs of the consumers today. I mean, think about it. How many of you are driving around today in a 1974 Toyota Corolla, right? None of us are, because it doesn't meet the demands of what the consumers want today. We want cars with air conditioning and GPS and Siri talking to us and all that fun stuff. And so the 1974 Toyota Corolla, although it might be a functional automobile, is not meeting the demands of the consumer today. And we're seeing the same thing in the housing market. A large portion of the housing inventory in America was built in the 1950s, the post-war, post-World War II. And so those homes are just not functional for the consumer market today. And therefore, there's a massive shortage of homes, because even the homes that might be available don't necessarily meet the demands of the consumer today, which creates more demand on the homes that actually meet that description that maybe a consumer is looking for. So this makes it even more challenging for us to get listings and to get sellers to convince them to sell. The other thing that occurs in today's market is a simple thing called greed. Each time there's a boom and a bust in a market, during the boom times, people that own a commodity, and a commodity could be real estate, a commodity could be gold. When gold spikes, people hold on to their gold and they're hesitant to sell it because they want to wait to the very, very last minute before they sell their gold and eke out all their money. Well, in fact, many of us have been talking to sellers lately who, let's face it, during the recession, they became accidental landlords. They didn't want to become a landlord, but they couldn't sell their home, so they decided to rent it out instead. So maybe they could go move, or maybe they take their relocation job, or whatever it may be. And since then, their property has begun appreciating. And so now that they even have the ability to sell, they have the ability to sell and actually make money where they didn't 5 years ago. Now they're holding on, right? They're holding on to the very last minute. Oh, I got to eke every dollar out before I sell because I got to have all the money. And that is in turn creating an additional shortage of inventory on the market. So the key today is, how do we get to those leads? Because when we go out on a listing appointment today, when there's so much demand for listings, right? There's so many people want to get their hands on the listings, investors, buyers. I hear home buyers going out and knocking doors to try to get their hands on listings. And then us as real estate agents competing over the same listings. The key is, how do we get to them first, right? How do we get in the door before everybody else? And and we have no time to generate new business. We're just out of time, and we're not focusing on keeping in touch with our past clients. We're not focused on generating new business, and there's no way that we have time to actually pause our business for any moment and go ahead and start making calls to try to reach out to listings or try to generate business from listings, because we're out there just running around chasing these buyers all over the place. Well, let's talk about why it's a challenge. See, many of us have gone to classes, right, where they talk about lead generating for sellers. And let's face it, we go to these classes and they say, okay, we're going to call expired listings today, or we're going to call for sale by owners, or we're going to just call our sphere of influence. Well, most of these classes were based on ratios that came along about 20 years ago. Now, I want you to think about it. 20 years ago, we had no caller ID. We had, maybe you had a voicemail, but it was a taped voicemail. You had one point of contact via the telephone, which was their home. You didn't have cell phones. You didn't have all these different ways of communication like email and texting and all this stuff. So 20 years ago, the conversion ratio was roughly 20 contacts equaled 2 to 4 leads or referrals. So for every 20 contacts, you would get 1 to 2 leads and maybe 1 to 2 referrals. And then out of that, you could flush out getting 1 appointment. And so therefore, most of the training that came along 20 years ago simply said things like, if you make 5 calls a day, 5 days a week, and you send 5 thank you cards, you'll build and generate your business. And you know what? They were absolutely accurate. 20 years ago, that worked like a charm, right? So that ratio looks like this. In order for us to net 20 contacts, we only had to make about 60 to 100 dials, because people typically were easier to get a hold of, and we saw 25 to 35% conversion. Now, for the past 6 years, I have flown around the country and trained lead generation to thousands of real estate brokers. And I can tell you that this ratio no longer pencils out. And this is one of the leading reasons agents get so frustrated and eventually fail and or quit the business. Now, a little bit about myself. For those of you that don't know me, I've been in real estate 20 years. I got in real estate when I was 21 years old. I sold 72 homes my first year, and by the time I was 24, I was in the Hall of Fame at RE/MAX for generating over $1 million in commission income. So I have a lot of experience with real estate. I've trained thousands of real estate brokers, and I can tell you that this conversion rate right here that you're looking at on the screen no longer works. And through training others, I can prove to you that following this methodology will only lead you to frustration and maybe even you leaving the business at some point out of this idea that somehow you weren't good at real estate. And I'm here to tell you your ability to sell real estate is absolutely within your control. This business doesn't lead to any specific personality type. This business doesn't lead to anybody who has certain backgrounds or certain traits, or you're too tall or you're too short or you're too young or you're too old. I've met people all over this country that are massively successful, no matter the limitations that they have, do not dictate their abilities. The only thing I can tell you is that their willingness to put forth the effort and the time will lead to their success. So let's show you how I coach people to be successful quickly in business. We come into the business and we begin promoting ourselves, and promotion is our marketing and our customer engagement and doing our events, right? And then we have to sell ourselves, and sales is where we actually have an opportunity to do our presentation, set expectations, write and sign the contract, and then manage the expectations afterwards. Then we go through and we get to process and manage the transaction and the expectations from that point on. All businesses operate on this fundamental premise. We have sales and operations, right? Process and management is operations, and sales is what fuels the business. Most sales departments also have some type of promotions that help fuel them or provide some type of lead flow to the sales to follow up with. So one of the things I hear over and over and over again from real estate agents is, I just don't like the sales part. Have you ever found yourself saying that? I don't want to make the phone calls all the time. I want to focus on the business and helping the clients and showing them homes and helping them answer questions. That's the part I enjoy. And they don't like self-promoting themselves and putting themselves in the line of fire, right? That's one of the things that I hear people say is, I don't want to be the one out front. See, even if you're amazing at promotions and you're amazing at sales, at some point the business will get out of hand for you. And what will happen is you start in promotions, you move to sales, you move from sales to process and management, and then you have to jump back to promotions again in order to keep the funnel moving. And then your business begins to cycle and it jumps up and down and up and down and up and down. And if that baseline, what I like to call your comfort level, which is, let's be honest, that's your income level, is fluctuating up and down, then you get frustrated and burned out. See, the key to managing this is to find ways to generate business that are efficient and yet effective. And efficient is obviously things like email or mail, right? Those are very efficient. You can send out 10,000 emails to people in about 5 minutes, right? You can just click and boom, 10,000 emails go out. Social media is very efficient, and let's face it, it's very safe, right? You can do social media and it's not too out there or out front. And then we move towards effectiveness, and effectiveness is texting and the phone, and then face-to-face is the most effective way. So if you look at conversion ratios, you're going to be the most effective when you're face-to-face talking with somebody versus over the phone or texting them or through social media. Now, the key, though, is finding where efficiency and effectiveness cross. And at that point, you're going to have an ability to generate business consistently. So, the question that you all came for today, how do I generate listings today? Well, the number one key I want to share with you is you have to get to people before they have already reached out to other real estate brokers, because the real estate market is so massively competitive today. And so you got to get to them first. That's step number one. That's the first key. Number two is managing your expectations on how many calls it takes to reach out to people. we already know that the conversion ratios of 20 years ago no longer are effective today. So if we reset our expectations, then therefore we can reset our business. And I'll show you exactly how we can do this. So conversion today, to make the same amount of contacts you did 20 years ago, we have to make 4 to 5 times the number of actions. So 20 years ago, if it was 60 to 100 dials to get a hold of somebody, to get a hold of 20 people to generate 2 to 4 appointments to get one listing, today is 4 to 5 times that number. So therefore, working 40 to 50 hours a week, if you're using the same techniques, what I mean is if what used to take you 2 hours a day to do 20 years ago to get the same return today is going to take you nearly 6 hours to get the same results if you're using the same techniques. So therefore, you have to learn a new set of techniques in order to generate the business to provide for your family today than you did 20 years ago. Step 2 is consistency. How do we take the bumps out of the road? How do we take the highs and the lows out of the real estate business? Now, in order to create consistency, we have to resolve some issues with your business. Number 1 is how do we create for you more time? Because I know most real estate brokers or most real estate agents are working their tail off. They're putting in their 40 hours a week. They're pushing themselves, and yet they think, well, how can I make more phone calls or more actions, more face-to-face conversations, more coffee appointments, more lunch appointments, more meetings with relocation companies, more meetings with human resource departments, more meetings with attorneys. How can I do this when I don't have the time to manage my business, right? So the first thing we have to solve is more time. I would go ahead and write that down, that you need to solve more time. The number 2 thing you need to solve is getting more resources, and frankly, better resources. So resources are ways that you're aggregating your leads, right? How are you thinking about the business in the sense of the idea of abundance of leads? There are no shortage of leads that exist out there, just shortage of resourcefulness to get your hands on those leads and the techniques to use those leads much better. And number 3 is getting better leverage. Leverage simply is ways to duplicate yourself or create efficiencies. These are the 3 most important things. So leverage is technology, outsourcing a portion or part of the business, or hiring somebody to help you. And we actually do it in that order. So let's say, for instance, you had to get a marketing piece off. The first thing we would look at is what technology could we use to get this marketing piece out? The second thing we would look at is there somebody else that can do it for us? Can we outsource it out? And the last thing we would do, because it's the most expensive, is hire somebody to do it for us. Lead generation is no different. We would look at how do we generate more listing leads through technology, 1, outsourcing 2, and hiring number 3. And this is the key to take somebody's business from 15 deals a year to 30 deals a year, from 30 deals a year to 50, 60 deals a year, or for 60 deals a year to 75 deals a year. This is the same path for somebody who's making $2 million as somebody who's making $50,000. Now, I want you to think about the market for a minute like a football field. Imagine for a minute that a balanced real estate market is where the contract was signed, the listing contract was signed on the 50-yard line. And to generate the listing, it took about 20 hours and $500 in marketing. So let's assume that you were in a situation where you were farming an area for the past 2.5 years. And in that 2.5 years, you spent, say, $2,000. And of that $2,000, you can equate that you got 4 listings from that. So therefore, you got $500 per listing invested in that market. So your average cost is $500 to get a listing. Now, your time invested to get that listing was about 20 hours. So you invested $500 in 20 hours. Now, after you got the listing, to manage the file, to maybe do some preparation or some photography and maybe a virtual tour, you spent $500 on the listing and you had 20 hours in managing the listing on the back. That would be a balanced listing market. Now, those of you that were in real estate about 5 to 7 years ago, you're going to remember this, the extreme buyer's market. Now, in the extreme buyer's market, it was very easy to get listings. Listings were abundant. There were areas where you could walk up and down the street and there were 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for sale signs on the street. And to get a listing, you just knocked on the 11th door. And sure enough, they were behind on their payments. They were underwater. They had to move, and they would sign the listing agreement with you also. So therefore, maybe it only took 8 hours to generate a listing and maybe $100 that in maybe business cards or some flyers that you put together or whatever. It was very easy to get a listing 5 to 7 years ago. Yet once you got that listing, because we were going through a long sales cycle, we had listings that took 5, 7, 10, 2 years to sell. I mean, they took forever to get them sold. And then once you got them sold, they took forever to get closed. And so therefore, the same $1,000 that we shared in the balanced market is now divided $100 on the front and $900 on the back. Because I know for me, I didn't negotiate the short sales. I would hire that out to create efficiency in my business. So my cost to sell the home went up because it took me longer to market it. So therefore, I paid more fees to the multiple listing service. I paid more fees to helping manage the file, and I paid more fees in order to get the property to closing through the short sale negotiations. So it was the same thing, but now the market's out of balance, meaning a very short time to get the listing and a long sales process to close. Well, if you look at today's market as the opposite of that, is understanding that the time and energy today has to be spent before you get the listing. Because once we get the listings, for the most part, and I understand this is not true in every part of the United States, yet it is true in more than 75% of the United States is currently in a seller's market. So what I want you to understand is today you have to invest more time on the front of the transaction and a little more money on the front of the transaction in order to get the greater return on the back. And this is the key principle that top performing agents understand in today's market, that it's the same $1,000 spent, but this $1,000 is spent on preparation and acquisition of the listing, not on marketing and negotiations on the back, as it was 5 years ago in a buyer's market. So, what is the solution, you ask? You say, Sean, well, what is the solution? I came on this call, give me a solution. The solution is this. You simply have to be in touch with and in front of more people that own homes than you ever have before. More people that can think of you when they think of selling are going to give you a greater chance of getting listings. And this is the neatest part, in fact, is it doesn't matter how long your experience is. The National Association of Realtors says that the average seller only interviews one agent before listing their home. And this has been my experience the entire time I've been a trainer, is that I've seen brand new agents go out on the first time meeting with somebody and walk away with a listing contract. Now, does that to say that a high producing or top producing agent isn't going to have a higher conversion rate? Of course they are. Of course they are. But it doesn't mean that you can't still get listings and be successful in this market just because you're newer to the industry. So the solution is this. In your mind, you have to divide up the business: promotions, sales, process and management. Again, typically most real estate agents love to live in category number 2, which is following up with leads, doing presentations, setting expectations with the client, negotiating the contract, and managing the expectations after they've set them. That's where most real estate agents love to live. Some people love process and management, and some people love promotion. This is the most important piece, though. You can only be one of these at any given time. And if you want to create consistency in your business, you have to, at some point, make a choice of which part of this business are you going to own and which part of this business are you going to choose to find solutions either through technology, outsourcing, or hiring in order to get it done to create consistency in your business. So let's move to step 3, which is autopilot. Getting listings generating consistently for your business. And again, I can't stress enough how important it is to be in front of the other agents. You want to be the only agent interviewing for these properties. You've got to be in front of them. You've got to be the first one in the door because 60% of the time you're going to get that listing. So to get this stuff on autopilot, we have to find long-term solutions to continue to generate business. So the solution is being focused on being effective, not efficient. Okay. Emails are efficient, but they're ineffective, right? So we know that it's ineffective. You got to increase your promotions department. Find technology that will help you communicate your message faster and more efficiently. Outsourcing and hiring people to also help you generate leads. Just imagine for a minute, if you had 10 listings right now and you were busting at the seams for time, it would make sense to you to find help through technology, outsourcing, or hiring to help you manage those 10 listings, right? Because if you didn't, what would happen? You're going to miss something, or even worse, you're going to provide poor customer service, and people are going to talk about you and your poor customer service. So if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to hire in order to provide high-level customer service in the back end of your listings, why wouldn't you be willing to do it to get those 10? If you know once you have them, the managing the process is going to be so easy and so efficient, why wouldn't you just take the time and spend the extra resources of money and time on the front of the system to get those 10 listings? It's the same amount of time and money. It's just positioning the time and money differently than you have in the past. And then lastly, number 3 is systems. What resources will increase your ability to contact more people effectively? How do you get more leads so you can take more actions, right? How do you get in front of people that aren't in front of 20 or 30 real estate agents already? I told you I'm not going to sell anything on this webinar. Here's the opportunity I have in front. If you're someone who wants to freedom from having to go to the office every day, be able to take time off, you want to challenge yourself, you're willing to invest in yourself and in your business, and you want more from life. Because, let's face it, it's not about the money for us, right? Money's great, and money creates opportunity, right? That's really what it does. Money doesn't make you happy. Money doesn't necessarily solve problems, but money gives you more opportunities than you have if you don't have money. So if you're somebody who is looking to increase your business, I'm putting together a group class to learn this stuff at a high level. You're going to have an opportunity to learn not only how to lead generate effectively in this market, meaning how do you get a hold of and get in front of sellers. The goal of this is to get your listing lead generation on autopilot. For some of you, it might be getting it out of the garbage can in the first place and getting it rolling again. Here's the prerequisites of the course. You must already be in real estate business and have some transactional experience, because we're not going to have time in this course to stop and pause to help you, learn how to fill out a listing agreement. You have to have some transactional experience. You have to be willing to invest in your business. In this course, we will be providing you technology for free. I have a sponsor that will be actually giving us some technology for the first few weeks of the course so you can test it out for free before having to spend any money. But you are going to have to invest in your business. You're going to have to invest in technology at some point. Not a lot of money. We're talking a few $100s a month. You might have to invest in some lead sources in order to generate leads, but trust me, I'm a frugal individual. We're not going to be spending money that's not going to generate a return. And lastly, you have to have a desire to make more money. Think about it for a minute. I mean, what would you do with more money? What would you do if you could generate 2 to 4 more listings every single month? And you could have consistency in your business doing this. What would you do with the money? Would you pay for your kids' college? Would you take more vacations? Would you maybe put away for retirement? Would you help maybe a family member that could use help? I mean, in most of the area in the country, 2 to 4 listings is going to be another $10,000 to $15,000 a month. In some part of the country, it could be $40,000 a month in additional income. I mean, I don't know about you, but for most, $5,000 a month is a game changer, right? We can upgrade our house. We can buy a new car. We can take those vacations that we want. So my goal for you is you to just have consistency and happiness in your business, right? My goal for you is for you to succeed at the level that you've always wanted to succeed at. Michael Gerber says, your business is either growing or dying. There's no such thing as stagnation. Your business never just sits. It never rests. If it stagnates, it's slowly dying. And if our business is self-reliant on us and all the times, then as our energy wanes, as we get tired, as we go on vacation, as we want time off, our business actually begins to die. I know that doubt and fear sometimes holds us back. And we say to ourselves things like, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money, right? I can't handle the business I have anyways. That's why this program is needed for you. This program, we will talk about efficiencies in your business to allow you to generate consistent business without working every minute of the day. So I ask you, if you want freedom, you want a challenge, right? You're willing to invest in yourself and in your business, and you want more from life, I'm going to ask you to schedule with me a strategy session for 30 minutes. And during that strategy session, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding what this business plan looks like moving forward. Let me take any questions that you might have. I have one here that says, what is realistic expectations of the program? Well, I can tell you, if you do the work, the law of statistics will tell you that you will be able to consistently generate 2 to 4 listings a month. What I can't predict, though, is if you do the work. The other criteria that we have to talk about is understanding that different parts of the country have different demographics, because real estate is very much a regional business. We can't necessarily predict how the strategies work in your specific area. So there's another reason why I encourage you to go ahead and log onto my calendar and let's have a conversation about that and if the strategies that we have will be effective in your area. I have another question here. When are the calls? So the calls will be likely on a Thursday morning or a Friday morning. The webinars will be released each Monday. We will have a group, a private chat group of which all the resources will be hosted, and you'll have an opportunity to access those at your given time. And we'll have strategy sessions on there, and we'll help each other as we reach struggles. So we'll share scripts, we'll share all kinds of different things that might come up in the process. So that will be available via the private group. Okay. Well, I look forward to talking to you guys. I hope you get into my calendar, and I appreciate you all being on the call. Have a great day.